In this episode of Run It Back, we examine the Democratic Party's strategy of basically doing nothing during the coronavirus crisis and what a real left party could have done instead. When the coronavirus lockdown started in most of the United States, Biden kinda disappeared, and as the de facto leader of the Democratic Party kinda disappeared too. He kinda got the same treatment Kim Jong-un's getting right now, since nobody's been able to locate him or confirm that he's still alive. People were saying, is Biden sick? Does he have coronavirus? What's going on? He disappeared. And then his team came out and said it was because he needed time to set up a live stream studio in his basement, which is weird at the least, but bullshit probably, because it only took me a couple hours to set this up with minimal equipment. All he needed to do was know somebody with a camera. That's pretty much it. The software is free. But when Biden finally emerged, it wasn't all that great for Democrats. The gaffes started right away.
In order to avoid those very high numbers, we have to do at least several things. One, we have to depend on what the president's going to do right now. And first of all, he has to wait till the cases before anything happens. Look, the whole idea is he's got to get in place things that were shortages of.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Joe Biden's miraculous challenge to Trump is that he must get things into place where there are shortages of.
But the real point of this video is to talk about what the Democratic Party should have done if the Democratic Party was a real left party. But they aren't. We know that because they're corporate backed and they're never going to be able to do things that are really populist and that people really want so long as that corporate backing remains in place. Some of the problems with the Democratic Party's approach were clear right away, like when Biden called on Trump to act more like a wartime president.
Trump keeps saying that he's a wartime president. Well, start to act like one. To paraphrase a frustrated President Lincoln, writing to an inactive General McClellan during the Civil War, quote, "If you don't want to use the army, may I borrow it," end of quote.
Just think about that. The ground you are ceding to Trump when you tell him to act like a wartime president. Who are the wartime presidents we think of? FDR? Lincoln? I mean, maybe Bush, but he was an idiot. And we wouldn't want him to act like that anyways, so you must be referring to the good ones, right? Nomiki Konst made a really good point. She tweeted, "Smarter strategy. Trump is an economic depression president. Why would Biden reinforce a narrative that's won incumbents' elections? If Trump were responsible, he'd have abandoned austerity policies for economic security. Instead, he runs as wartime, and Biden echoes his message." That is so true. Why are we doubling down on his message? Trump wants everyone to think he's a wartime president. Biden should not be reinforcing that, especially when wartime president is a message that wins re-elections. The wartime president mentality is the same thing that won George W. Bush his re-election, and he was a complete disaster. Instead, we could have referred to him as a depression or a recession president, which is actually really good framing, but we didn't. We called him a wartime president. We could have associated him with Bush's biggest failure, the thing that proves that trickle-down economics and the entire right-wing idea of how the system works is fundamentally flawed. And all this time, Biden's tweets even are weak as fuck. His pinned tweet right now, "I can't believe I have to say this, but please don't drink bleach." Cool, but give me something more than that. At least be aggressive. A joke is not what we need right now. Here's another tweet. "We are months into this crisis, and healthcare workers still don't have the protective equipment they need. It's a national disgrace." Again, true, but fight for something. Call for something. Demand something. Be specific. Just calling out the problem. Hey, this is bad. Yeah. Okay, what are we going to do about it? We need leadership right now, and I think that is what is severely lacking from the Democratic Party right now. So what should the Democratic Party be doing right now? What could a real left party in America have done in this situation. I think there are a ton of things they should have been fighting for, but they were not. For one, Democrats should have developed an always up-to-date one-pager in digital and print form that they could have sent to everyone. They should have put a ton of money towards it. This is what you need to be doing right now. They should have made it available everywhere online, shared it like crazy. They should have been the de facto leader in where people go for information on this. I know it makes sense to let the CDC take control over things like that, but it's Trump's CDC right now, and we have to remember that. Not to mention, you could have printed those out and sent multiple copies to everybody on all of your lists. Everybody could have had those, so when they needed information, when they needed to share information with their friends, with their family, who could be Republicans, they would be getting something that said Democratic Party. They'd be getting something that helps them take care of their families from the Democratic Party. That is powerful, but of course, it didn't happen. Here's an obvious one. Why isn't Biden having competing live streams with Trump every single day? Even if it's not at the same time, maybe right after you go directly into a fact check. You provide an alternative source of the same information, except you dissect it and you get rid of the lies. That would be really nice. Why we're trusting the media to do this for us when we know they just want drama, because drama is ratings and ratings is money, is insane. A real left party could have been organizing actual mask making and transportation drives. The Democratic Party could have been filling in where Trump's administration has failed, so that when people see, oh, we don't have enough masks, we don't have what we need, oh, who are we going to turn to? The Democratic Party has already delivered 1,000. They're over here. Let's go get them. But the DNC doesn't have that type of infrastructure. They have an infrastructure to raise money from donors. Perhaps in the future, Justice Democrats or a group like that could organize something like that. Maybe whatever spawns from Bernie's campaign could organize something like that. But right now, there just is no capability, and so it was another huge missed opportunity. A stronger Democratic Party or a real left party in America could have organized strikes to help keep workers safe, especially in places like food processing plants. I'm in Indiana right now, and there's a Tyson factory or whatever plant that has had an outbreak of coronavirus, and that's totally preventable, and those workers should have never been there anyways. And at the very least, there should have been something in place to protect them, to test them, to keep them safe. There's no reason we should be having outbreaks at places of work. It's ridiculous. We know what's going on. We know how to stop this, but we're just not. This is an easy one. There should have been organized food drives in every single state and city in the country. The Democrats could have organized that. I'm sure they did in some places. I'm sure local parties did the same, but it could have been publicized more. People should know about that. We should be collecting a ton of food, even if we're not giving it away right now, to put back, to hold, to make sure people know that there is an emergency supply that is being created just in case. People want someone to rely on right now. Then Democrats could have been that. Those are things that could have happened if we were a stronger, more organized, more left party. Of course, that didn't happen, and those things are aspirational right now, but they're things we should be thinking about moving forward and as we build a stronger progressive movement. Now, there's other things that we could have been pitching as well for larger structural changes in the country. To start, the education system is pretty fucked up right now. It's terrible. Rich neighborhoods have nice schools. Poor neighborhoods have shitty schools. That's how it is. That's how it's been for a really long time. But it also revealed another issue, which is a tech deficit in communities with less money. So you have kids driving to McDonald's or the library to use the internet to do their homework or check their email or whatever it is these kids are doing right now. That's unacceptable. So there should be a push right now to get more money into these schools, especially inner city urban schools, or even a lot of rural schools that just don't have the money of suburban schools with plenty of property taxes. Additionally, more money to those schools and more tech being implemented, lessening that tech deficit gap that exists between rich schools and poor schools would also make dealing with things like pandemics easier in the future, and other issues as well. Snow days, we have those here in Indiana. You might not down south or wherever you are, but a lot of places do, and it's not good for our schooling. So those kind of investments not only are helpful now, but they're helpful in the future as well. Such an obvious thing we should have been demanding as soon as this pandemic started. Bernie Sanders was. The Democratic Party still refuses to hop on. But we need universal single-payer health care. It's so obvious. I can't imagine getting coronavirus right now, surviving it after weeks in the hospital. And I know people who have spent weeks in the hospital with the coronavirus and then coming home to a $9,000 bill or whatever your deductible is, or who knows how much money you could end up paying out of pocket. And imagine not having any insurance at all and that happening, getting hit with a 60, 80, 100, 200 million dollar bill. Who fucking knows? Because there's no cap on this stuff if you don't have insurance. And even if you do, it's bullshit. You can end up paying a lot of money. Nobody, absolutely nobody, needs to be worried about paying for the treatment of coronavirus. And not only that, they don't need to be worried about getting fired for not trusting Governor Kemp in Georgia when he tells them to go back to work and they know it's not safe. Why would we be trusting governors from a party who don't believe in science about a fucking pandemic? Are you kidding me? Democrats should have been doing a lot more to protect these workers' health care and their jobs. Speaking of jobs, we should have been calling for a fucking jobs guarantee. The craziest thing I've seen this week, at least, I don't know, probably just in the last hour because Trump will probably say something. Mark Cuban, who was at least a libertarian Ayn Rand reader, said that this pandemic has changed how he thinks about things.
Smaller government was always better than bigger government, and that all changed. You know, if you were to ask me 4 months ago whether I thought we could lose 26 million jobs and potentially many more within the space of a month, I would have said you're crazy. There's just no way that's going to happen. And so dogma's got to go out the window. And so, you know, a federal jobs program, I would have been against that. Federal minimum wage, I would have been against that. There's just so many things that I think we need to do now. And, you know, and that's what entrepreneurs do. That's what, you know, leaders do.
Suddenly now he's for a jobs guarantee. He understands the minimum wage. He understands some of these issues. He understands that small government can't really fix big problems, and this pandemic is a big problem. A small government can't deal with this. And I think the most obvious thing we could have gotten out of this, and the Democrats did literally the opposite, is a vote by mail system, a national vote by mail system. At least every state should have done it, but nationally we should have pushed for it as well. But instead, this is the dynamic we had. We had the Democratic Party essentially supporting having voters vote in person in Wisconsin because it was safe enough. And then just this week, the New York Dems canceled their primary there, completely canceled it, which is fucking insane. And the problem and what connects them both is at neither point did the Democratic Party say, well, let's just do all mail-in ballots. Why they didn't do that, I don't know. It's hard, it's expensive, it's less exciting. I really have no idea, but it's stupid. It's extremely stupid. It's another fuck up for the Dems, and it leaves the ultimate worst case scenario open for Trump. Trump can say, Democrats agree, it's too dangerous to vote. Stay home, can't vote, not gonna vote, canceling the elections. And that's fucking dangerous. Obviously. And the worst part, the absolute worst part for me was that Nancy Pelosi stuff, that Marie Antoinette moment. Man, I don't know if a couple years ago that would have bothered me so much. I think I would have said, stop being sexist. This is ridiculous. Let this woman be. Let her be successful. But how fucking tone deaf can you be? People don't have jobs right now. People are having to decide to pay for food or rent. And you're out here showing them your super expensive ice cream that you have options, multiple flavors of, in your $12,000 a piece, fridge, freezers, whatever they are, $24,000 in refrigeration, hundreds of dollars in ice cream. And you're trying to connect with us. You're trying to convince people that we're on the same side. Fuck are you doing? So, in the end, Dems spent the coronavirus crisis essentially fighting for nothing. We are on stimulus bill number 4. And you've gotten one check, maybe. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I'm supposed to get it Thursday. We'll see. So just think about that. Who's fighting for you, what they're fighting for, what they're pushing for, whatever. Thank you for listening to this edition of Run It Back. I hope to see you next time.